What angels do when you give your last coin to someone. Angels descended with fury. Padre Pio watched heaven explode into motion. Not slowly, not cautiously, with desperate speed. A woman had just given away her last coin. Everything she had. Her final resource. Her only hope. And heaven erupted. She was starving. She had not eaten in 2 days. The coin in her hand was all that stood between her and complete destitution. She needed it, desperately. Then she saw someone who needed it more. An old man, collapsed on the street, begging, dying. No one was helping. Everyone walked past. He would not survive the night without food. The woman stopped. She looked at the coin. She looked at the man. She knew what giving it would cost her. Everything. But she knelt down. She placed the coin in his trembling hand. She said nothing. She stood. She walked away into the darkness. That is when Padre Pio saw heaven tear apart. The vision had struck him without warning. One moment he was in prayer. The next he was witnessing something that would change how he understood mercy forever. Angels surrounded the woman instantly. Not one, not two, a multitude. They moved with urgency Padre Pio had never seen, as though her very survival depended on their speed. One angel went ahead of her, opening doors she could not see, creating opportunities that did not exist moments before. A stranger would offer her work tomorrow. Food would come from impossible sources. Another angel returned to her home, protecting what little remained, preventing the disaster that would have destroyed her. The landlord who planned to evict her in the morning would change his mind for reasons he could not explain. A third angel remained with the old man. The coin she gave should have bought 1 meal. It bought 3. The food should have sustained him 1 day. It sustained him a week. Grace multiplied what sacrifice had given. Heaven had responded to her sacrifice as though she had given a fortune. Because to her, it was a fortune. It was everything. Padre Pio felt shock grip him. He had seen people give before. He had seen charity. He had seen generosity. He had witnessed donations that fed hundreds. But this response was different, more violent, more total, more immediate. Why? She had given 1 coin. Wealthy people gave thousands. Why did this single coin summon such power? The vision paused, but only for a moment. Then it showed him another scene. A wealthy man. He saw the same old man begging. He dropped a large bag of coins, enough to feed the beggar for months. He made sure others saw. He announced the amount loudly. He waited for applause. The spiritual realm barely stirred. A few angels came. They did minimal work. The coins helped. The man was fed. But heaven did not explode. No multiplication occurred. No special grace descended. The man received what he sought. Human praise, recognition, admiration. But heaven gave nothing more. Padre Pio understood. Both people had given. Both had helped the same person. Both had responded to the same need. But heaven saw what the gift cost. The woman had given everything. Her last resource. Her only safety. She had made herself vulnerable to save another. The man had given his excess. What he would not miss. What cost him nothing. What changed nothing about his life. He remained safe. Heaven responds to sacrifice, not to surplus. Days later, something shocked Padre Pio even more. The angels had not left the woman. They were still there, still watching, still working, still providing. And what they did next revealed the secret most people never learn about giving from poverty. The woman had nothing. She had given her last coin. She should have starved within days. She should have been destroyed by her own generosity. But the angels moved with constant attention. Work appeared that should not have existed. A merchant needed help. A neighbor needed something she could do. Food came from strangers who did not know her. Her needs were met before she could even voice them. Not just survival. Abundance. She never connected it to the coin she gave. She thought it was God's provision. Random kindness. Good fortune. But Padre Pio saw the truth. Heaven was still responding. The angels had never stopped. That 1 coin had opened something that continued to pour. The sacrifice had unlocked a flow that never closed. Nothing moved for a long moment. Then the vision deepened. Padre Pio began to see the pattern heaven was revealing. The gifts that summoned heaven's full response were not the largest, not the most public, not the most celebrated, not the ones that built monuments or earned recognition. They were the most costly. The souls that brought heaven to immediate action were those whose giving carried a specific quality. It was not about the amount. It was about the sacrifice. It was about giving what you cannot afford to give. About releasing what you desperately need. These souls did not give from surplus. They gave from lack. And heaven cannot resist that. At first, Padre Pio saw only the outward act. Both people had given money. both had helped the beggar, both had responded to suffering, but heaven saw what the gift cost the giver. The woman's gift had cost her everything: safety, security, survival, hope. She had given because someone needed it more, even though it meant she might not survive, even though it put her at risk. The man's gift had cost him nothing: convenience perhaps, a moment of time, a trivial amount from vast wealth, but his life remained unchanged, secure, comfortable, protected. And heaven responds to sacrifice, not to convenience. The vision paused again. Padre Pio felt heaven preparing to reveal something deeper. Not just what happened when people gave sacrificially, but why this kind of giving unleashed such power. The silence stretched. His breathing slowed. The room felt heavier. Then the vision resumed, but differently now. Padre Pio saw that heaven does not respond to amounts. Heaven responds to proportions. A coin given from poverty is worth more than a fortune given from wealth, because the coin represents everything while the fortune represents nothing. When someone gives from surplus, they remain safe, protected, in control. The gift changes nothing essential about their life. They go home to comfort, to security. But when someone gives from lack, they become vulnerable, exposed, dependent on providence. The gift changes everything. They go home to uncertainty, to risk, to need. And that vulnerability summons heaven's full response. Because that is faith, not giving what you have extra, but giving what you need, trusting God to provide what the giving has taken, releasing control of your survival. A soul that gives its last coin has released control completely, stopped protecting itself, stopped calculating safety, stopped ensuring outcomes. It simply gives because someone else needs it more. And that kind of faith moves all of heaven. Padre Pio understood now what made the difference. Generous giving is not about the amount, not about the percentage, not about looking charitable or being praised for generosity. It is about the sacrifice, about giving what costs you something, about becoming vulnerable for another's sake, about risking yourself. The soul gives when giving hurts, when giving risks, when giving changes their own situation for the worse, when giving might destroy them. That sacrifice proves the heart is pure. That vulnerability reveals the faith is real. He saw another example. A poor family. They had barely enough food for themselves. 3 small children, hungry, tired. Then a stranger knocked, starving, desperate, begging. The father looked at his children, looked at the stranger. He knew what feeding this person would cost. His own children would have less, perhaps not enough. They might go hungry. But he brought the stranger inside. He shared the meal. He gave half of what his family needed. Padre Pio watched angels fill that home. The moment the decision was made, heaven responded. The food that should have been insufficient fed everyone. The children were satisfied though the portions were smaller. No one left hungry. The family never went hungry again. Not because they suddenly had wealth, not because their poverty ended, but because angels kept multiplying what little they had. The little became much. The single act of giving from poverty had opened heaven's supply over their entire household. The vision shifted once more. Padre Pio now saw something that disturbed him deeply. He saw people who had learned about this principle. They had heard that sacrificial giving brings blessing. They had heard the stories. And they began to perform sacrifice. Not from faith, from calculation. They gave large amounts. They made it look sacrificial. They told everyone how much it cost them, how much they were risking. But they had backup plans, safety nets, hidden resources. They risked nothing real. Heaven barely moved. Padre Pio watched one such person, a man who had heard that giving your last brings multiplication. He wanted that multiplication desperately, so he staged sacrifice. He gave publicly. He made it seem like everything. He wept. He spoke of his faith. But he had hidden resources, secret accounts, family support. He was never truly vulnerable. His gift was technically large. People were helped. Needs were met. But his heart was not pure. Heaven saw through it. The sacrifice was performance. The vulnerability was fake. The risk was managed. True sacrificial giving cannot be manufactured. The moment someone gives while protecting themselves, it stops being sacrifice. It becomes investment, transaction. And heaven does not reward investments. Heaven responds to faith. The vision began to fade. Padre Pio remained still. He would never teach this as a formula. He would never tell people to give their last coin to get blessed. That would corrupt the very thing that made it work. But he would say quietly to those who came to him, when you have little, and you see someone who has less, and you can give something, give it, even if it costs you. even if it risks you, even if you need it yourself, even if giving might harm you, not to manipulate heaven, not to gain blessing, but because that person needs it more, because hoarding when others starve is death to the soul, because love means sacrifice. Give what costs you something, give what you cannot afford, give what makes you vulnerable, give what might destroy you, not to gain blessing, but because faith means trusting God with the consequences, trusting that if you give, God will provide, and watch what happens. Watch how heaven responds when you give what you cannot afford to give. He sat in silence long after the vision ended. The room felt different now, not heavier, not lighter, just charged with possibility, with promise. The truth remained with him, not as technique, but as reality. Angels respond to sacrificial giving immediately, not because heaven rewards generosity, but because sacrifice reveals faith, and faith opens heaven's resources, the kind of provision that never stops, the kind heaven has waited to give.